One of the major challenges with Glide is integrating payments. Now, while there are various solutions or ideas to go about this, much of this would require an extra step or probably not what you want to set up, right? Probably if you are in a different country and you want to use your own payments provider or payment processor, things to become a hassle or hard to understand how to work with this, right? So in this guide, we'll explore payments APIs and how to demonstrate, and I'm going to demonstrate how to integrate them into your own system. Now, this approach is not limited to Glide alone. You could also use system platforms like Flow or Bubbles. In this example, I'll be using Stripe, which I do love because of their payments of their API is really simple and easy to understand and read. So now it doesn't apply to Stripe alone, like I said earlier. You could also use it for platforms like OpenPix or Woovi. It really just depends on whatever you're trying to build. So in this tutorial, I'll guide you through the process of integrating Stripe with your Glideapps without needing any additional tools, except for a webhook receiver like Make or Zapier, which we are going to use to edit the tables and probably would also be and also create more in-depth flows depending on what plan you're using in your Glideapps. Okay, so what I have here is a booking app, and this is just a directory booking app, or you could come over and book a therapist for whatever need you need, right? So we head over to our therapist here, and let's say we want to work with DVD. Okay, and let's say select a session. Okay, and I just see time is available time, and I probably select the dates. Let's see on Wednesday. Okay, and I select the time. Let's say 2 p.m. Continue. Things you want David to know. I would need help. Continue. Confirm booking. Final step. And the final step will then take you to a payment URL, right? So then we select pay now. So we get a request that is please wait, and you can see now we're redirected to a payment URL by Stripe. So this is the amount, and this is the account which is paying. I'm going to say okay, pay with card. Now what I just want to get is Stripes. So now this is a testing. I just want to get Stripe cards test, or the cards available to Stripe that we can test, right? So we're going to paste this here, and we just want to select a future date. Let's say 12/45. CVC will be 123. Okay, phone number card. Let's say me, and okay, and I pay. No thanks. So like I said, we have a successful payment, and after every successful payment, we'll then be redirected back into our own application, and that's where we are over here now. So you can see here, we have been redirected here now. This booking session is completed, and then you guys like go further from there, right? Awesome. So now I'm going to explain to you how we're able to build something like this, and just to have a general idea, and this could really scale to anything you want it to scale further to, right? And if we do check the back end, you probably see we could probably have our invoice. Let me just share my screen. Yeah, so over here now we could probably get the invoice URL. That would probably be the last event that's over down here, and this is going to be our invoice URL. So I just copy this, and I can just open this in a new tab, and you can see a receipt from Breakflows, our amount paid, this and other details, right? So that's kind of like what I'm going to show you how to create. So let's get into it. We'll cover how to use Stripe for subscription-based payments, for dynamic payments with unique titles, and the best part is after a successful checkout session, our users will then be redirected back to anywhere we want them to go, and in most cases they'll be redirected back to our own app. All right, let's get started. So we have about 2 ways to go about this, depending on what plan you are on. If you're on a maker plan, then this would probably be a scenario or a sequence. But due to this, we'd also have to use 2 make.com scenarios, right? Well, if you're on a business plan and above, then what we're just really using is just going to be this system, right? And we'd also want to use just a single make.com scenario, which is just going to be the receiver, and this receiver is just what is editing the table in our Glideapps, right? But while if you're on a maker plan, we are going to use this system, and with this system we're going to need two scenarios. One scenario is going to send us back our Stripe payment URL, while we also need the receiver to edit our tables. Okay, so let's just go into how we are setting all of this up. So when dealing with payment providers or payment processor, right, they all usually have the same terms. For Stripe, they call theirs session checkout. Sorry, that's checkout sessions, right? While from OpenPix, they call theirs charge. So that's kind of like, it's kind of like similar, right? The terms they use, sessions, charge. You just have to like know what they're trying to get. And the way to check their docs is you just have to like search. Probably if I'm making a search, or documentation, open Pix. But you notice that here is going to be the documentation for OpenPix. And if I'm working with PayPal, I'll just search docs PayPal. And this is probably what I'm just going to understand. So this will probably be the REST APIs, as that's what we're going to be dealing with. So for this specific use case, I search on docs Stripe, and that's where I got this first URL. So I clicked on it, and that's how I found myself over here. Now, in order for you to create a checkout session or a checkout, Stripe calls their session, right? Now there are different sessions we can make. We could update a session, we could retrieve a session, we could delete a session. But for this specific use case, we want to create a new session, right? So that's what we got over here. Okay, so create a session now. And over in most APIs, they'll probably list the kind of request they want you to send, and they're going to show the what they will send back to you. For instance, in Stripe, for instance, right, when you're making a checkout session, they would want to see something like the mode, the source URL, the price of the item, and the quantity of the item. So these are like the basic things they want to see when you're creating a session, right? And without these parameters, you just get an error request. So if you just check show parameters, okay, yeah, just ignore that. But you could get the idea from the post session here, or the post, just this kind of idea. For instance, if I were to check, let's say work with PayPal, right, let's just go to REST API. Okay, so PayPal would probably be called, let's check payments. Okay, I'll probably take me a while to just find out because I haven't dealt with PayPal API. But over with PayPal over here now, you can see this is kind of like what they want you to send. So this is what you send to them, and this is just these are just like the headers, and this is what they'll send back to you. So most of the API platform, they're going to tell you what they want to get in order for you to receive what you want to get, right? So this is just how PayPal API works. So back to Stripe. Okay, now if we do create a session like this, then we're going to get all these values. So because this is what we're dealing with, so like I said, you have to go through the API documentation to understand what you should do. Okay, next thing we have is, now that we've kind of like understand what we want to find, now with Stripe here, they said we have to get our mode, that's our mode payments, and that's what we're kind of like sending all the way here. Now what you have to explain is, because we am trying like showing you this from a maker plan perspective, we have to first send it to a webhook trigger, right? So this webhook trigger is then sent to make.com, and then we have a whole sequence of HTTP requests that we are calling, or trying to get, right? Because with the maker plan, you can't make a call API within the platform, so you have to send the request outside. But if we're on a business plan, then we can definitely make a call request platform in, and it's way faster that way. But this idea still works. So what we want is to be able to send our values from our Glideapps to make.com, and to do that, we're going to use a webhook trigger. So you just search on that, just search something like this, and that's going to search webhook, and what you want to get is the webhook trigger or trigger webhook. Okay, and once you've gotten this trigger webhook, so you know each run uses one update, and you want to assign a URL to it, and this URL here will be gotten. Or you know what, we could just like create a completely new scenario just to show you how we could go about that from here. Let me just head over to my scenarios. Okay, so we're in a new scenario in make.com, and what we want to get here or create is a webhook trigger, and that's going to be a, excuse me, this is going to be create a response to the webhook, right? All right, I'm sorry, we aren't dealing with a mail hook. It's more of a webhook that's trigger when a webhook receives data. So we custom webhook, and we want to create a webhook, and you should just like change the name. Let's say test stripe gets, save, and we just like copy our webhook URL here. Copy that, okay, and then we'd ever back to our Glideapps, and over in this URL, you're just going to replace the URL there. So for this use case, I use this URL. I'm just going to copy that. So I'm just going to clear that and replace it with the new webhook URL I have over here. Now, what would happen next is we want to test this so this can receive some kind of like data. So we want to select determine data structure, and we're going to select run, but that's not really what we but in order to do that, we have to first create some kind of like body request, right, or some body in the webhook trigger. So you're going to add about 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. So you're going to add about 12 bodies, right? And the first one will be called metadata open bracket row ID close bracket. So I'll probably create a Excel file or a Google Sheets for you to be able to like understand how to just go about all this, right? Because I think it's kind of like hard for me to explain this just by looking at it, right? So I'll probably link that in the description below. Okay, so we're going to have this will be our first request, and what this is doing is getting the row ID of the specific cell we are working on. For instance, let's say this is the booking table that we're working on, right? And let's just try to create a session. So let's say I'm working with John Doe now, and I want to create a session like this. I'm gonna select 6 times. Let's say I just want to book a session with him. Okay, so you can set the previous date. Then this time, continue, and help, please continue, confirm booking, final step which is to pay. Now if I check data here, so you can see now I'm working with the booking row, right? And so this is just the idea of this is just the booking row which I'm currently working, and you can see here payment link, there's not really any payment link here, no status, no this ID. So what I'm sending is this row ID of the specific row that we're working with, that is over here. So that's the first value I'm sending for this specific payment we want to have as row ID. And remember, you have to get this exact structure. So but you just don't have to worry, because I remember you have to make the structure word for word, especially the header, right? So we don't make mistake when trying to like understand our idea. Okay, now we have total amount in cents. Now I'm not really sure I explain this, but this specific scenario is going to be working for dynamic payments, and which should also mean unique titles, right? So that's kind of like what we are setting up right now. So you have total underscore amount underscore cents, and what this value is your amount in cents. So if we check over to the table, to the value here, so you can see here, while this is our initial amount, that's going to be what the user will be reading, width is going to be in cents, and this is what we're going to send to Stripe, right? So we're going to have this price multiplied by 100. Now you don't really have to worry about the unit we had over here, because when Stripe is sending it doesn't send the units, it just sends the value here. But nonetheless, you could just like get rid of this, right? So but it doesn't really matter. So now 2500 So $250 will be equal to 25 will be equal to 25,000, right? That's in cents. About our workflows. Okay, now I've explained this, and session name is just going to be the session, the unique title you want to give it, right? And also I have to explain to you, if you're kind of like sending your parameters in not from a column or not from a table, but rather you want to input a specific value. Okay, I think I can like explain that here. You'd have to put it in quotes, right? That's like in double quotes. That's why we have USD here in quotes, and we also have the URL here in quotes, right? But if it was an integer, probably like the amount, for instance, that's going to, if it's like something like total amount in cents, then what we want is to just, if we were to make that custom, we're going to say 25,000. For this use case, we aren't going to put it in quotes because you don't put an integer when sending JSON body, right? You don't put an integer in quotes. Okay, so just make this sense back. Okay, and this is just going to be additional info. Probably you want to add any additional info to the app. Not really necessary. I'm not quite sure why I added it, but it's not really necessary. Okay, and then we have the email, and the email is the email of the user. That's going to be the user profile email, so you can know which user is paying. And then we have Stripe ID. I'm going to get into this, but Stripe ID is the unique ID provided by Stripe for you to be able to understand a user whole life cycle. Now Stripe doesn't really use email. I mean, they could use email, right? But they prefer to give, it's just like our own row ID for our tables. Stripe own is called customer ID, but yeah, just call it Stripe ID for you to be able to understand what we're having. Next, we have success URL, and this is the URL you want the user to be redirected to after a successful payment. The same idea is for a cancel URL. For instance, if a payment didn't go through, then you want the user to be redirected to a cancel URL that is like saying, hey, your payment didn't go through, and can you please try again, right? So that's what we have here. Then we have currency, and currency is the currency you wish to have. You could head over to Stripe Docs to understand how all their currency works. I'll probably be using USD. If we're using Brazilian reals, then that will be different. Just like I said, you just have to go through it to understand how it works. I think also sending the user row ID. That is probably the user row ID, and I'm going to explain what we are using that for in the long run. Okay, and so that is probably where it ends. Client ID. Where did this come from? Okay, yeah, so that's not relevant. That was probably something I added just now. Okay, now once we've sent this, so let's just test this now, and let's make.com. I want to, okay, let's run once. I just want to receive a body request, right? And let's run this. Okay. Oh yeah, so I probably set a scenario there. I'll just clear this now. Okay, let's run this. Yeah. So we've gotten our body structure here, right? So this is just how it look like. You can see here we got the session name, the amounts in cents, the row ID of that specific table, the user email, the Stripe ID, source URL, cancel URL, the currency, and the user row ID. So that's kind of like what we did here. And let's head about our main node. Next, I had a router, right? And the idea of this router here is to say, okay, now there are two scenarios, right? When you're working with Stripe and you want to work with the APIs, you need to have their own customer ID. So each user must have their own customer ID. Unless you don't want to work with the API per se, and you just want to like use the direct payment link, then you don't really need a customer ID. But if you want to make this like standard and kind of like accurately strong, right, you definitely want to get the customer ID. So I have two scenarios here, and I use a router. And what this router is doing is I have a filter here that says if Stripe ID exists, then pass through, and if Stripe ID doesn't exist, then pass through here. So over here, not sure I could explain that. I have something called Stripe ID, right? And this is coming from the user table because I want all my users to have a user, because I want only users to be able to sign in. Now, if your users aren't signed in, then you probably have to think of a different scenario. Now, this is very much possible, which would then mean you just have to like go through only one part. But because I'm trying to like simplify this, I can like reduce the number of updates I'll be using. So you can see here, that's why I can like just make sure my user just have their own Stripe ID in their own table, right? So I don't have to waste updates, ops rather, every single time I'm making this trigger. So that's the idea there. And so I'm sending this Stripe ID. Now, if there's no Stripe ID in that case, then it won't pass any Stripe ID, right? It should just be empty. This won't go through. But if there's a value present in that column, then it's going to go through. Now, this column is going to from Stripe ID. That's going to be in the user profile. So you can see a Stripe ID right over here. We have something here called Stripe ID. So because we have two customers with their own Stripe ID. Okay, just explain. Okay, now we have this router. So this flow is passing through. If Stripe ID is present, then pass through here. So you can see we have cut this by half, just 3 modules that are working. But if Stripe ID is not present, then pass through here, right? So let me just explain this. For the first scenario, let's say Stripe ID is not present, right? So it's going to pass through here. And what we have first is a call request, HTTP call that would enable us to create our own Stripe ID. So what you just want to have here would be, so we have just have a router. Like I said, I probably have created this 2 times, but I'm not going to explain to you. It's kind of like more easier for me and to be quicker if I explain how all this goes, or I show you how you could just like create this yourself. So I've explained how the router works. Then you could just create some filter by just using the same idea I showed earlier. Okay, now what we have is an HTTP request, and you just have to get it, just a simple HTTP there. That's just going to be make your requests. Okay, so this is not going to be a get, it's going to be a post request. So if I head over here now, you see we have a push request, right? And this is going to be the URL. If we head over to Stripe documentation, okay, so if we head over to customers over here, these are the core resources. Then you could create a customer, right? And you can see in order to create a customer, this is going to be a push request to create a customer. And what you just want to send is literally just email. So like this is what is compulsory, right? You could also send the username, but that doesn't really matter, because what if the user wants to pay with a different card, right? Then it's kind of like be a hassle to it's probably give you like some kind of error saying the user, because they won't be able to change the name anymore, right? So that's what we want to avoid. We want the only thing that is gotten from the user is probably the user email and not the name, because they could pay with any credit card, they could pay with anything, right? So that's the idea there. Okay, and now we have a customer, and you can see if we head over back here just to check the API here. Okay, yeah, so now we're actually working with JSON, right? So what you're going to read is Stripe customers create, and what we have here is going to be just Stripe customer. So this is the general URL, while this is the path to follow through. Okay, this is going to be post request, right? And then we have some headers. First header we have is content type, and you know Stripe doesn't really work with JSON, right? So with Stripe you have to use a URL encoded format, which means we are passing our body as queries and not necessarily as JSON. So you have to get so this is what you're going to pass probably also leave this in the Google Sheet file. Then you'd want to have another header, and this is going to be your authorization, right? That's the name value. Why the value is going to be bearer and your API key for that specific project, right? So over in my developers now, I'm currently working with a test account. So let's say I'm starting afresh, I'm home, right? So where I'd want to add to be developers over here, and then I would get my API key, which is this. So if this was a complete launch profile, right, then you'd only be able to get this API key once, but because it's a test ID, a test profile, right, so that's why anyone could just see my API key. So I'm just going to copy this API key and I will paste that here to replace this, right? Okay, now I'm not going to do that because I already have created a scenario, so I'm trying to like explain the flow we're trying to have over here. And once you've created that, the only query string that we're passing is just going to be the email, and that's going to come from the email node over here. Remember, we pass, so that's going to come from the email node we have over here. So that's how we got that. The body type is also going to be application and your encoded, so you can see all this. Just going to select this, and that's really all there is to the first HTTP request node. Okay, so now the thing is, if we run a scenario like this, right? So let us launch this scenario, copy address, head over here back. Okay. Now let's try and run this scenario. So I'm going to run that. Head over here now, I'll just select run. Let's probably get something like this, right? Okay, so now I'm here, and okay, yeah, so now I'm here, and what I have here, you can see how the flow went all the way down here, and my value here is just going to be the data. You can see here, this is the unique customer ID I got from Stripe, right? And then I'm going to create a pass JSON. Now what the pass JSON does is just like allows you, so in many cases when you're working with APIs, right, they don't really send you each of the values, right, or each of the parameters as a single entity, right? So they're kind of mostly like grouped as one in a single parameter. So it's your job to be able to get what you want from there, and that's where the pass JSON comes in. So our pass JSON here, we just like got it from data over here, just like drag that here, and that's where we got the and this would allow us, and this broke down each of the JSON value on that data for us that we could then use. So then once we've gotten that, we will then create a new HTTP request, and this is now what this HTTP request does is the exact function we are trying to create. Now remember, we only passed through because there was no Stripe ID present, right? But if there's a Stripe ID to pass through here, well, because there's no Stripe ID here, we needed to first get or create our Stripe ID, then we could then move forward. Now back into our sessions. So into sessions now, so you can see here, these are the values we passed. We're going to head over back to make. Now our URL is going to be this is the main URL, right? v1 checkout then sessions. That's our URL head. And then our method is going to be a post request. The name would also be a content type. This will be the value. This will be the authorization. And it's going to be bearer, our API key, similar exactly like here. For now, for this use case, our mode will be payments. If you remember over, yeah, so our mode will be payments, right? Our source URL is going to be dragged from over here. Source URL will be dragged over here. So that's that. Cancel URL is also going to be dragged from there over here. Line items quantity. Now, because I already made a summary of everything I want in the user table, I already have a total amount. That's why I just make this 1, right? If this was 2, then our amount is going to double. If it was 5, our amount will become total amount is going to be multiplied by 5, right? So you have to be practical about how you go through this yourself. Okay, and customer here is just going to be the customer ID we got from here. Now this is our path JSON, so it's going to be exactly like this, mind you. So we're just going to have something like this. Just drag that all the way down here. Okay. Next thing we want is this exact. Now notice you have to like use the exact name. So I'm going to like post all this in the spreadsheet. So you could just like come over here, you just like copy and paste it directly into your own scenario, into your own system, right? So we are going to have this exact file. Now the reason why this looks like this is because this is actually a single file, but it has multiple children items inside, and this is how you are going to be able to, and this is how to group query parameters if you're trying to get them in this kind of like format, right? Because if we did run this in a JSON, let me see if they did mention shows that in a JSON. Yeah, so if you check over here now, we have line items, right? Then we have a kind of like open brackets, and what this is saying, like we have children value inside our brackets, right? Next we have price and we have quantities. So these are the two values inside a line item. That's why we had over here, we had line item. This is just the session name. If we head over here, okay, so over here we weren't able to, it didn't say we could change our session name. And yeah, so this is kind of like a bit different from the API already provided here. We're kind of like creating a new system on our own, right? So it's kind of like a bit different from here, but it's still the same idea. This would work if you are using the price from a product, right? So if you create a product, then what you just want to get is a price ID, and just set the parameter to price and just like write the price ID there and quantity, right? But for us, we're creating something dynamic. That's why we are going through all that. So you have to use this, and then the session name is going to be whatever name you wish to use, which is what we're passing as session here. The same thing we're going to do another idea. It's going to be the total amount, and finally we have the currency, right? So I'm going to write that here as currency over here. And then now this is very important. If you want to pass exactly the row ID, right, the row ID of that row we're working with, right, of the booking row we're working with, then it has to be put into this format, into this exact title word for word. All this must be put into the exact title word for word. If one is missing, then the whole system shows an error result. So this is going to be metadata, open brackets, square brackets, row ID. Now this value here could really just be anything, right? What matters is you have your metadata here, and then you would have this. You could also create, if you want to pass another value there, you could also attach that, create a new parameter, and just write metadata another item under that, right? So that's going to be something like metadata, let's say fruits. Let's call this apple. Right, so that is the idea there. And then over in Strap, we're going to get a value that says metadata apple, right? So we are talking with that. And then the body type is also going to be a URL application URL coded over here. Okay. Now next thing is, once we've run that, we're going to get a result, and our result is also going to be as it was in this request over here. So you can see here we can't really get our items from here. These are just like in a single string, which is why we then have another pass JSON. And what this is doing is going to pass the JSON into a way we can get a single parameter from there, which is just going to drag this data value here, just put it over here, and that's how we do that. Okay, now I can just save this. Also gotten that. Now remember, this scenario is for if we don't have a user, a customer ID, a Stripe customer ID. So now next I want is, I created a scenario or a system to edit the or to add a customer ID within Glideapps, right? So this is working in the user table. I've already made my own connection, and this is my app, and this is my own table. This is the user table actually. You have to like get your row ID. This is very essential. If you want to edit any table within Glideapps, you need to get the row ID of that table, of that row. So we got the row ID. We're not really editing any of the other values except from the stripe ID. So over here now, maybe I got my stripe ID from here. So I just like drag this over here, and that's how I got my stripe ID. Okay, and then finally I just created a new glide events or a new glide module. And what I'm doing now is I'm getting the row ID of that specific cell or that specific row in the bookings table. Okay, and I'm not going to send the payment URL, and this is the payment URL over here. That's going to be 25 here. So you can see here, this is just going to be my payment URL, and just write it over here. So now once I do this is, so I kind of basically explained how this system works. Same idea is going to apply for here, but over in this scenario now, we are starting from this scenario here, but we aren't really using the edit user table anymore, because now we already have our stripe ID here. We're just going to like make the request, then pass the JSON, then send the URL to our glide, and this is just how it would look like. If I head over here now, and let me just claim my data, that'll be under bookings. Okay, I just want to clear this, and if I run this now, that's going to be over here. Run over here, and I run this also. Okay, so over here now you can see I am getting values here because I already have my stripe ID with me. Okay, so I'm able to get something like this. Still the same idea, still the same value as which was in here, and then I have a JSON, and this JSON just like pass everything, and then I'm getting the stripe ID, the payment ID, right, which is just here. Just send the payment ID from here. Now your structure should be almost exactly the same structure I have over here. So if you don't have the same structure, then something is definitely wrong, and you can just like hit me up or reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'd love to take a look. Right. Okay. Now that we're done with this idea, let's just head over back to our Glideapps and let's try to understand what we're trying to create here. Okay, so now we've sent a webhook trigger, right? And over here now we also sent a request that will then send our payments URL back to us. So now I have a condition here, right? Because if I had just set the next event to be payment click open, the thing is it takes about on average 7 seconds or about on average 5 seconds or so in order for this complete scenario to pass through, right? So depending on how fast stripe and make is, then that would depend on, so depending on, and that depends on how fast stripe and make is. So for this case now, if I had not used this, first if I say disable this and I head over here, okay, I head over here and I just like run this scenario, right? Run this sent, but nothing would happen, right? Because currently there's no payment link in that row, that specific row, right? So we have a wait condition here, and what this wait condition here is saying is we are basically just waiting for make to write an event over send to here. Okay, Yeah, so I just made a timer of 10 seconds because on average it take about 10 seconds for the payment to happen. Then we have a message that says please wait, and if a failure happens we're just going to say um please try again in an hour, right? So without something like this, now you could probably set more parameters that will block. Why you don't want excessive clicking is because if for instance the payment doesn't go through right first time, probably most likely the user is going to have to want to click again, and let's say they click again and something is definitely wrong with our system or something is wrong with Stripe, then Glide really doesn't care. They keep removing they keep deducting a trigger webhook every single time that will be clicked. So you probably want to improvise in order to minimize the usage and say, hey, we've clicked 2 times now, nothing happened, please wait in the next 2 hours and then try again. So you could definitely set a filter there that will prevent them from going through it again, right? So that's something I'll leave you with. Then we have a condition that says float condition where payment link is not empty. So until the payment link is not empty, then proceed. If it's empty, then do not proceed, just wait, because the timer is 200 seconds. It really doesn't matter whatever I wish to do, but that's just the idea. So I'm going to release this, and then the final execution is going to be open link, which is going to be payment link, and that's going to be payment link over here. So that's our payment link over here. Okay, awesome. Okay, now we're basically done with the first part in creating this whole webhook event, and now we're going to go into the second part. So I basically just call this real therapist receiver because this is what we're going to receive from Stripe now. So if we head over to our Stripe app, so I'm definitely sure you probably have an idea on how this whole system works. Now you'd want to head over to the developer section over here. So you select developers, and where we want to get to is called webhooks, right? So now you'd want to create a webhook. I'm just going to clear this. So you want to create an event destination, create that, and you want your endpoint URL to be the webhook over here. That is the new webhook we are creating. So you're just going to copy this, copy address to clipboard, head over back to your head over back to your, so copy the address to clipboard, head over to your developers portal, then you just drop the webhook URL over here. Now what is the description? I want the description to say this is a webhook for a payment. Now event on this specific account, not on my account, version. Okay, and which event do we want to listen to? Well, the event we want to listen to is the event we've been working with for a while now, and that's create checkout sessions. I'm going to say checkout session. So what we want to use is checkout session completed, right? Then we add this events and just add these endpoints, and that's really literally all we are doing to set this up, right? And once a successful payment has been made, then we are going to like send this. Now once a successful payment has been made, I'm going to send a request, or we're going to send the data back to this webhook event over here, and this will then like trigger all the way through here. So we're going to test this with a previous account I've made, just for you to have an idea on how we would create, on how that would look like. Okay, so this is a sandbox which I was using, right? It's kind of like the same idea as a regular Stripe account, but so you don't really have to pay any much attention to this. I just want to test out how the sandbox works, and kind of like the same idea. Okay, so we see head over to our developers here, and so these are just my API keys, and me personally, I already created this webhook over here. You can see it's the same value as the one over here. Just see that, right? Okay, just bring this over here now, and if I click inside, so it is only listening for one event, and that event is called checkout session completed. Okay, now how this works is when we send the webhook, we then get an HTTP request, and then all this follows through. So I'm not going to explain this. I'm going to run these events, run this, and I want to just resend a successful session, send this value, and now we get here. So this guy is going to flow through over here. Awesome. So now this is kind of like what we are getting. Let's just check the data objects, and these are all our values, right? So now these ones are in parameters which we can use, so you can just like go through them. If I'm trying to get the row ID, now all this is aligned alphabetically. That's how Stripe arrange them. So you can just like see if you're trying to like get some data, like for instance our row ID was under metadata, select that, you can see here row ID, and this was our value for that specific row which we're working with. Now notice this now remember, you have to like send the exact value you want to send in the earlier HTTP request. That shouldn't change, right? So Stripe is still going to get all that value and kind of like send it back to us, to any webhook. In fact, you could even rather than work with Make, if you do want to do everything seamless within Glide, right, we could also create a webhook back to us in Glide, because Glide just released a new event, a new trigger, which was webhook, right? So I'm also going to show you how to just work with webhook yourself, just have an idea on what we can do there. All right, okay, now back here, now we have this HTTP request, and what we have here is what we want to get now is the payment intent. Now why we're getting the payment intent is our end goal is for us to be able to get the invoice or the receipt of the payment, to be able to show the user that, hey, this is your receipt, come check it out anytime, right? And you can't really just get the request directly. You have to first get the payment intent before you can then get the request file, or the receipt file rather. So for this use case, what I created was a way for me to get the payment intent, right? Which is why what you just have to do is use this URL, and if we head over back to our documentation and we check for payment intent, I'm just kind of like hard for me to see with the lightings, right? So I have to like focus deeper, search payments. So this is a core resource. So you can see we have payment intent, and payment intent guides you through the process of collecting payment from a customer. So yeah, so we want to create details from our customer, and the idea or the value we're using is actually payment intent, and that's this specific get value, because we want to get that, right? So over here now we have a get, and what we're getting is just the data over here. So our payment intent was gotten from, let's just open this. So we just want to search data object payment intent. Yeah, this is our value here. So that's going to be data object payment intent. And just like drag this right after this trailing slash. The method here will be a get request authorization. So the header is going to be authorization, the bearer, then the API key of our account. Just have that here. And once we've run that, what we're going to get is a value in data. And remember, once we get our values in the data field, we have to pass that value, so we're able to get the next parameter we want. So now, once we've gotten this, we're then going to create a pass JSON. And once we want to pass is the data we get from over here. So if we select this, we're going to just drag data over here. And now once we get that, this is going to pass, and this is going to be our new value. So we're going to have all these awesome parameters that we can then use to do anything we want to do. Next, we want to create another HTTP request, and what the call API is now is just charges. Now the idea is for us to get the specific receipt file, or the specific file of that payment, right? And in order for us to do that, what I am trying to get here is the latest charge made by that made by that so what I want to do now is to get the latest charge, right? The latest charge value. So if I head over here and I just search for charge, so now this is the charge of the payment intent over here, right? So that's what we're trying to get. Also, don't consider that we just like drag it over here. Still, right after the trailing slash, we are using a get method. Just search as that's going to be get. Header is going to be authorization, bearer, SK test, and this is going to be our API key, and that's just all there is. Okay. And then we also want to have another partition because our value here would also be in a data field over here, as you can see. So we want to also use a patch JSON to kind of like break all these parameters down for us. And you can see here we have our receipt URL. Next we have a router, and what this router is just saying is if so we have a filter here. Okay, so we have a filter that says pass through here if object payment status is not equal to paid, right? So if it's not equal to paid, then pass here and just like say failed. Well, if it's equal to paid, or if it's equal to paid or anything else, then just pass through here. And what we have here is a set variable, and what this variable is doing, just like I call this date paid one cycle, and I'm kind of like trying to format the date in a way Glideapps to be able to read and understand very well. And this is how you could just format the date yourself, right? So I'm also going to put leave this in the Google Sheets for us to be able to understand, right? So you have that, and our value here would be the date, the current date, right? So yeah. And finally, I was like editing our glide table. So you can see route therapist bookings and the row ID, which was the row ID we got from over here. So you could just search for since we already know it was kind of like meta. So since we know it was meta, we didn't need to be row ID over here. We aren't really editing any of the values again, except from some values here, which is going to be dates paid, would then be the final node we have here. That's going to be dates paid. We just drag that over here. Payment method, they're going to search or under this value here. So just check for payment method, and that's going to payment method. Now you don't want to get JSON bodies with multiple items. You only want a single item because yeah, you only want a single item. Okay, so now it's called payment method details. Okay, that was, you could just search something here called type. Sorry. Okay, yeah, so wasn't sure why I couldn't find it, but this is what we're looking for, like payment method details type. So just like drag that over here, and invoice number, just want to search receipts. That's going to be receipt number, we just put that over here, and the invoice URL, that's going to be receipt URL, we just drag this and put this over here. And that's really all there is to working on this scenario. Okay, now let's go and see the idea of if we were actually working with a call API and how fast we could have gotten with all this.